Forretress, the bagworm Pokemon. It is encased in a steel shell. Its peering eyes are all that can be seen of its mysterious innards. Historically, Forretress has only really been known for one thing in the Pokemon metagame: management of entry hazards. Apart from Amistar and Smeargle, it's the only fully evolved Pokemon with access to all three forms of entry hazards: Spikes, Toxic Spikes, and Stealth Rock. Additionally, it is one of a very small number of Pokemon with access to Rapid Spin, thereby protecting your team from entry hazards as well. Take this uncommon utility and add in amazing typing and defense stat, and Forretress is a very tough nut to crack. Unfortunately for Forretress, there's only really one moveset it can utilize effectively. Forretress's longevity throughout the years has basically been this set, with some modifications as new moves get introduced. Send it out to tank a strong physical hit, use the ensuing turn to set up some entry hazards, then switch away to a counter Pokemon of your own next turn. This set is not about flash, style, or meaningful offense in any way. That being said, there's a reason Forretress has been one of the most frequently used Pokemon for over a decade. Residual damage from the hazards will add up over time, and Forretress has a knack for walling an enormous percentage of the metagame with its great resistances and high defense. Forcing constant swishes will eventually take their toll, and the entry hazards you set up will be worth it in the long run. Spikes and Toxic Spikes take consideration on this set because of their more limited distribution, but all three hazards are interchangeable on the set if you can get others in with the rest of your team. Forretress's typing gives it 9 resistances with only a single weakness. This, coupled with its base 140 defense, means that it can be impossible to beat if you don't have the proper tools. Any fire-type attacks are a natural solution. However, smart users of Forretress already know this and typically have a wall of some kind waiting in the wings for this exact purpose. Bulky water types make good counters to Forretress as well, since most of them hit Forretress's abysmal special defense with a non-resisted stab attack. Though not a direct counter to it, Taunt will destroy any potential setup Forretress may try. That being said, it can still use Rapid Spin and Volt Switch through Taunt, so you may only be delaying the issue. If you have entry hazard abusing team of your own, Ghost types can block Forretress's Rapid Spin to keep the hazards in place. Other counters to it depend on which attack move Forretress decides to bring. Fast, frail attackers will work well if Forretress does not have Gyro Ball. Magnezone beats any Forretress not carrying Volt Switch, and anything with Flying or Levitate will laugh at Forretress carrying Earthquake. Magic Bounce abusers like Espeon and Xatu make Forretress virtually useless as well, so be wary of those if you see them on the team preview. Though Forretress is notoriously difficult to bring down, at the same time it doesn't have very much offense to fire back on its own, so having a dedicated Forretress counter on your team can be quite easy to find. Any fire attack is an obvious choice. Even physical fire attacks, hitting the far superior of Forretress's defenses, will still deal incredible damage to it. When using Forretress, you also have to beware of neutral special attacks like Surf, Scald, Thunderbolt, and Earth Power. Forretress's special defense leaves a lot to be desired, so keeping it out against any special attack goes a long way to keeping it healthy and usable. Volt Switch has been a godsend to Forretress in the 5th generation. It can allow you to actually see your opponent's primary Forretress counter without even needing to keep Forretress in play. Though sending out Forretress and using Volt Switch on turn 1 is typically not ideal, since Forretress's job is to spread entry hazards anyway, it can be done if you want to do some scouting of your opponent's team. You need to also be aware of gimmick sets that prey on your knowledge of the metagame as well. Most Tyranitar are walled easily by Forretress, but if a Tyranitar carries Flamethrower, Forretress will be destroyed with no effort. Because of its incredible utility, Forretress can literally fit onto any team. If you're in need of entry hazards, Rapid Spin support, or just a tough physical tank, look to Forretress for the job. On a Sun team, since Forretress takes great damage from fire anyway, the additional power of fire attacks doesn't have that great an effect. On a Rain team, Forretress's lone weakness loses power, and it can suddenly survive some physical fire attacks. On a hail team, Forretress can sponge priority fighting attacks like Mach Punch and spin away the stealth rocks that will rack up great damage against the ice type. Realistically, if you have a team that you don't think Forretress will fit on, you either have all of its roles covered already, or you're not trying hard enough. Inevitably, Forretress has a number of Pokemon it will always be compared to. Its brother-in-arms, Skarmory, is typically more useful overall because of its ground immunity and access to both Roost and Whirlwind. However, Skarmory lacks Rapid Spin, which is one of Forretress's major selling points. Another second-generation competitor for Forretress's job is Donphan. It can set up Stealth Rocks, use Rapid Spin, and has many more offensive options. However, Donphan lacks other entry hazards and the great resistances that give Forretress additional appeal. Plus, Forretress is immune to toxic spikes, so if you need to spin those away, Donphan will suffer from the status where Forretress will not. Ferrothorn is another Forretress substitute. In addition to their names sounding very similar, they have similar typing and access to multiple entry hazards. Ferrothorn also has a much higher special defense and access to Iron Barbs, meaning Ferrothorn can hurt opponents without even attempting offense. Like Skarmory though, Ferrothorn doesn't have Rapid Spin. If there's one thing to take away from all this, it's that the reason Forretress is so popular is that it can fill a number of roles with its one boring moveset that no other Pokemon in the game can do nearly as effectively. Forretress harkens back to a time in Pokemon where defense was king and entry hazards ruled the metagame. Even though the current metagame doesn't have the emphasis on hazard management of older generations, Forretress still shines as one of the best utility Pokemon out there. It won't give you a quick, easy, flashy win like a lot of other Pokemon will, but if you keep it safe and abuse its great defenses, Forretress will go a very long way to winning you a lot of close matchups. If you have any comments, questions, or suggestions for any future videos, leave them in the comments below. If you are interested in participating in our online Pokemon League, click the link in the description for more information.